without further ado, I would like to introduce the Honorable Chokwe Lumumba, the mayor, 53rd mayor of the city of Jackson, Mississippi. He is 34 years young when he was elected on July 3rd, 2017, making him the youngest mayor in Jackson's history. He is an attorney, husband, father, and the son of two lifelong community activists, the late Mayor Lumumba and Nubia Lumumba. Thank you. The mayor has earned his JD and a certificate in sports and entertainment law from Thurgood Marshall School of Law at Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas in 2008. After law school, he immediately returned back home to Jackson, Mississippi to serve with his late father at the law firm of Lumumba, Freeland and Associates. He litigated criminal and civil cases and represented various sports and entertainment clients for the firm. In 2013, he launched his own firm, a firm dedicated to community invested in justice. The mayor has had a history of pro bono work as part of his commitment to providing community members with quality representation, regardless of their ability to pay. He is a member of the Mississippi Bar Association, as well as the Magnolia Bar Association. Let me give you just a few of the important initiatives while he has been mayor of the city of Jackson. He established a strategic plan towards building a dignity economy in the city. Additionally, he has strengthened community oversight of the police, including establishing a Mississippi First policy on releasing the names of officers involved in shootings, banning excessive force, including chokeholds, strangleholds, knees on the neck, and requiring officers to intervene and stop other officers from using excessive force and report any such actions to a supervisor. Winning a nearly $90 million settlement in the Lumumba administration's lawsuit against Siemens. This lawsuit was initiated to recoup losses to the city related to the water infrastructure, billing, and metering issues so that, as mayor has said, Jacksonians can get the infrastructure we deserve. Also, preventing the state takeover of the Jackson Public Schools through an innovative partnership with the state. Through this partnership, Jackson Public Schools, the city, funding, and community partners to improve outcomes for Jackson scholars. This initiative included door-to-door outreach to engage community city input. But there's more. Also embarking on the largest infrastructure improvement initiative in the city's recent history. Improvements will address decades of neglect and include the pavement of the historic Medgar Evers Boulevard and other major streets, installation of nearly 150 updated parking meters, and road and sewage line repairs throughout the city. Lastly, the mayor is the recipient of several awards, including the National Black Caucus of State Legislators 2017 National Builder Award, and most recently, the Frederick Douglass 200 Award in the area of politics, an honor bestowed upon him by Frederick Douglass Family Initiatives and the Anti-Racist Research and Policy Center at American University in Washington, D.C. He also has been recognized as one of Mississippi's top 50 most influential leaders and the Roots 100 most influential African Americans in 2017. Lastly, the mayor is a faithful member of the Free Christian Ministries and serves on the church leadership team. He is married to Dr. Ebony Lumumba at Jackson State University and has two princes in waiting, the dynamic two little daughters, Laka and the second daughter, Nubia. I welcome to you the mayor of the city of Jackson, Mississippi. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to join you. When you started reading my bio, you said I was 34. I certainly, that seems like a lifetime ago. But
that's 4 years ago.
Yeah, it was 4 years ago, but that was the start of a pandemic ago, the start of a flood ago, the start of a school district takeover, and a litany of other things. But first and foremost, it's a pleasure to stand with y'all. It's a pleasure to be a part of this conversation. Brother Rob, I really appreciated your introduction of the purpose and the background on the organization. And Miriam, I think you did an amazing job, bringing that information to us. And so I'm happy to be a part of this conversation, not only talk about the present challenges we suffer as it relates to healthcare, as it relates to the health of our communities, and how it ties into the historical challenges we know we've always suffered from.
Well, thank you. And again, everyone, please put your questions in the chat function. We will get to those questions after we have some pre-selected questions, but we welcome engagement. This is a community conversation, and we welcome you to ask questions that are important to you. So my first question is, we know that you have had a lot to address in your first term, and HIV issues were pushed to the back burner. Now in your second term, what future plans do you have in mind to address the HIV epidemic right here in Jackson, Mississippi?
Well, let me say this. The city's typical function of support usually is in the vein of HARPA funds that are given to two agencies. One, Grace House here locally, and also organization called MUTE. And I think that we have to go beyond that. I think that it not only has to look like the funding that we provide, but actually taking an active role in reducing the stigma and stepping in much in the same fashion that we've had to author solutions in the midst of COVID-19, in the midst of this pandemic. I believe in the process of collective genius. I believe that we're a lot smarter together than we are individually. And so I think that at the center of these conversations, at the center of these discussions, have to be the people who have been most disproportionately affected by the HIV pandemic, people whose families have suffered, people who have dealt with the stigma, so that we can learn our way to the solutions. And so, as has been said, in many regards, those who are closest to the harm are typically closest to the solution. And so that is what we need to build. As we look at the HIV pandemic, as we look at the COVID-19 pandemic, as we look at, you mentioned our efforts as it relates to infrastructure, when we look at heat mapping, when we look at so many other challenges that communities face, we know that there is a disproportionate effect on Black and Brown communities. And when you overlay the map, the fact that the same roster of people continue to come up time and time again demonstrates that we haven't gone wrong in this country. The reality is that we've never been right. And this is just consistent with that history that has been laid down, for hundreds of years now. And so it's not only how we challenge the leadership, which we have to do, but it's also how we challenge the very structure of the system in which we exist.
Thank you. And you spoke of two agencies, the Gray House and MUTE. However, I'd be remiss if I did not shout out some of the other community-based organizations that is doing the important work. My Brother's Keeper, Care for Me Services, CH Pair down in the Delta, what have you. So my next question is, in regards to collaborations, the mayor office has one role, of course, to the citizens, what have you. But what ideal collaborators do you have in mind in addressing HIV? And the follow-up is, how do you see those collaborations working?
Mm-hmm. Well, what I would say, and let me say this, I certainly did not want to leave out the important work of so many organizations. What that reflects is more the limitations and the failure of the city to engage enough organizations, because those are the two. And that has been something I've been critical internally of ourselves, is that we have to broaden our horizons of who we work with in a number of fronts. But in terms of collaboration, I think that the best collaboration is the community organizations that we can form. One thing that when I started and I said that we don't, we believe in collective genius, what that means is that we have things like a people's assembly that we have, and we have it quarterly across the city. because we fundamentally believe that 3 minutes on a microphone does not equal community participation, right? And so out of those people's assemblies, we lift up important issues that not only is an opportunity for us to inform what the city is doing to the community, but also to receive information back from the community so that they can hold us accountable. We have formed several important task forces around different areas of growth around the city. And I believe that this is an area where we can have a task force established so that it can direct our policy as a city, so that it can move us to no longer scratch where people aren't itching, and make sure that as we, secure one of the most important functions of electoral politics, and that is managing a budget, that our budget is aligned with our values, and our values being that of protecting our most vulnerable from pandemics like HIV, COVID, and what have you, all of those matters in which our people are disproportionately affected. This is why, in our strategic plan, one of the central pillars of our strategic plan is healthy citizens. Because as we talk about a radical agenda, as we talk about an agenda of building a dignity economy, which moves our people from cycles of humiliation to an economy which reflects the inherent dignity of each and every person, we have to address, recognize, and eliminate those issues that lead to the disproportionate effect of health outcomes within our communities.
So, Mayor, I just want to make sure I hear you correctly. You're creating this task force, or is something that you already currently have?
I do not have a task force in that regard. I'm taking on the charge. I'm taking on the charge of creating that task force.
Because, at Black AIDS Institute, we're going to hold you accountable now, and we want to work together. We want to work together. And, one of our community partners, the health department, my Berta Bender is here. She has been doing their important work at the State Department, but definitely, bringing these individuals in and who should be at the table. As you can imagine, with any task force, with any community involvement, obviously Black and Brown people need to be there, but collectively, everyone, the trans community, individual, gender non-binary, individuals that normally wouldn't come to this respective table, and making sure that it is something in the community. I think that is one of the most. So I definitely will make sure I follow up. Where are you at currently in regard to that? Are you still in the pre-planning and maybe January starting?
No. We haven't put the building blocks together, and everything about my leadership style is to invite critique, is it to invite that level of engagement. And so, as we think about this issue, and as I think about what the city's history of support has been, this is what I believe will be advantageous to our progress. And so that is what I am offering. We have a number of task forces. Let me just let you know, as I'm talking about this, for instance, we recognize from an economic standpoint and a growth standpoint in our city and our state, that the population we were losing at the most significant rate were our millennials. And so we started a task force called the Mayor and the Millennials, where we learned that millennials like walkable cities, they like urban environments. And so we learned and adapted policy in order to do public art and in order to build in that regard. We have a officer ID task force that led to not only the policy of IDing officers within 48 hours, eliminating mugshots being distributed after someone dies from an officer-involved shooting, no matter whether the merits of the shooting were considered justified or not. And so what I am offering is the opportunity to build a similar task force that helps inform our work in the best way possible. I think that it is a miscarriage of justice in order for people who don't necessarily, and even Black people, right, who haven't suffered under the stigma, can assume what the challenges are, can assume how we need to direct funding and how we need to adopt policy. And so I believe that, as I said, those that are closest to the problem are closest to the solutions. And so I submit that that's something that we can build. And I invite you to challenge us and hold us true to that word.
Awesome. Yes, challenge accepted. And thank you for even that. One thing I admire about your leadership is that you can receive that, because a lot of individuals, just leaders in general, not politicians, but just leader in general, they get to a level of not even being able to receive faults, not even able to receive missteps and what have you. And if the goal is to get everyone better and equal in equality and equity for all, you have to be able to step back and be humble enough to say, okay, maybe I did that wrong, or maybe how do I do that better? What have you. So thank you for that. You brought up something that is a hot button issue within Black AIDS Institute as we work to end HIV in Black and Brown America, stigma. Stigma affects all aspects of HIV. What will your administration do to help reduce stigma surrounding HIV?
Well, I will admit to you that I don't necessarily understand all of the measures in which I see the stigma in our community. Of course, I understand that people who suffer at the hands of the virus are often ostracized. I have in my previous life, I consider myself a recovering attorney, right? I've represented people who have been charged criminally with attempted murder, in having the virus and being charged in based on factual circumstances that the law provides for them to do that. And I think that we have to eliminate that. I think that far too often we try to criminalize. We offer the stick instead of the carrot in terms of how we support people, through those challenges. And I think that's a part of how we form policies that better inform our community. I remember, at the youngest of ages, I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. And I remember when Isaiah Thomas hugged Magic Johnson, right? And all of the stigma that was around that and how that was a big uproar in the NBA, right? And all of the ignorance that we have now learned from in terms of, just how the virus is transmitted, right? And today we are in a much more significant place in terms of the advancement of technologies and treatments in order to protect people who suffer at the hands of this virus. And so, we have to inform our community in that regard. And so, even in the way that people casually speak of the virus or casually joke, and I think our children pick up on that. And so I think there needs to be educational campaigns surrounding how we eliminate stigma in our communities.
I feel another challenge, so I definitely will follow up to see how you could do a PSA. You brought up something very, very good. I was a Bad Boy fan myself.
Oh,
Rodney
really?
couldn't do no wrong. The Worm, yes. I
He
went
did
to
a lot of
Cooley
wrong,
High.
but I hear you.
He won championships. He no judgment, but yes, the Worm was good to me, and Lambier and Vinny and the microwave, all those good memories, what have you. But those smaller steps can eradicate stigma. And as you know, or if you didn't know, we hosted a program at Jackson State University where it was called Cut the Stigma. And Cut the Stigma was something that aimed to cut the stigma per se. And we went to HBCUs. I think Jackson was the second stop. We went to Southern and Baton Rouge. We went to Tennessee State in Nashville. We went to Alabama A&M in Normal, Alabama. And the goal was to teach these young students that are in these prestigious universities about stigma and education. Because the more education that you have, the lower the stigma. Because a lot of times people are just not aware. And the more that people are educated, the more people are known. So definitely the smaller steps of just having a PSA, of just having the mayor cares, the mayor knows what have you, and get that out of here, can really go a long way of just being that, not necessarily that figurehead, but just another accurate representation. Most recently, Billy Porter, famed actor, came out with his HIV diagnosis after 14 years of suffering, as he said, in silence, what have you. Our director, Ryan Copeland, just recently talked to him about those struggles and what his plans are, what have you. So thank you for just speaking on that, because it takes a lot.
And to know that people are still suffering at the hands of the virus. I fear, as we were talking about COVID numbers, right? And one of the challenges that we're seeing in cities is that, as numbers are decreasing, or as hospitalization rates are decreasing, we're being lulled into a sense of complacency, believing that there's no longer a threat looming. And you know, the same as we've seen advancement in medical treatments, the same applies for HIV. And because of that, that means that as you deal with challenges of stigma, as you deal with challenges of funding, right, and support and recognition of cities, it allows us to become complacent, and that's why we need to be challenged in this way.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So keep your questions coming in. Thank you for the questions we have. We will get to them at the end. Thank you for that. But let's shift gears a little. Mayor, there has been a lot of research done to show the intersectionality between HIV and poverty. What are some of the economic initiatives that you have planned to help the unemployed and underemployed in Jackson, Mississippi?
Yeah. Well, obviously, you know, this is what we've been alluding to in the midst of several of our conversations. Not only am I a part of Mayors for a Guaranteed Income, where we intend to use some of our American Rescue Act funds in order to provide a guaranteed income to our residents. We've been fortunate to have a pilot program, Magnolia Mothers Trust, which has supported mothers with a stipend to help support their households, you know, and learn and educate and avoid a lot of the rhetoric surrounding support in that regard. Typically, we hear that you know, that money you know, leads people to not want to work, or you know, that they will spend it, you know, on frivolous things. First and foremost, you know, whether you work or not, no one monitors what any of us spend our money on. You know, we fail to recognize the importance of being CEOs of their household and all of the responsibility that they have, not only for themselves, but for the people that they care for. And that leads to a more just and more secure community when we support them in that way. And so we intend, as we have seen this pilot program take place, we intend to extend that as a city. There is matching funds that is available to the city of Jackson to help us launch this program. Additionally, what we believe in is cooperative business models, which enable our community to fill our gaps on our own. You know, we believe that there have been a lot of businesses that have come and done well in the city of Jackson, but because there was no reciprocal relationship where they felt that they needed to be invested in our city, as they prospered, they, you know, in many instances decided to pack their bags and you know, seek, you know, other grounds. And so we believe that by, you know, building worker-owned cooperatives, that we are able to provide incubator funds for, that not only can people determine how they'll labor, but what the fruits of their labor will be. We want to make certain that in every regard that we're building a dignity economy, as I have spoken to. And those are just some of the initiatives that we are working to employ.
Thank you. Thank you. Such a great cooperatives I remember reading about in Jackson Rising, that book that really just detailed the history and what can be done to shift the economic growth and what have you. So thank you for that. My next question talks about research. So there has been much research done to show that, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Just asked that. The next question is, homelessness is a national issue and particularly challenging for those living with HIV. Considering that the City of Jackson HOPWA program, a program that supports housing for individuals living with HIV, experienced significant delay in releasing funds prior to COVID-19 and during COVID-19, what have you put in place to prevent future administration a strain of delays?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, usually the function of our delay in delivering funds is our delay in getting them so that we can issue them out. And so, you know, we have to be prepared to protect it against that in every way. And so that's something that if we are missing the buck and if we are failing internally, that we need to clean up. You know, we see this in terms of, you know, what it takes. We're talking about economics and the economic mobility of our communities. We see this typically with Black contractors, the delay that other businesses may, you know, experience where cities give money for contracts. our businesses, because they don't have the operational capital to continue other projects, it hurts them more significantly. And so we have to make sure that we are nimble enough within our finances in order to accomplish that. Our biggest function within the last 4 years has been able to secure a more sound financial condition for the city of Jackson, right? When the city of Jackson is not financially stable, then all of the people that we support, all of the programs that we run, they are in financial turmoil as well. And so this is one of the areas that we need to, we need to build on as we have repaired our financial conditions as the city. We're not in a perfect place, but we're certainly in a much more stable place now than we were before. The issue of homelessness for us is a regional issue within the state of Mississippi. We, quite literally have other cities that put people in police vehicles and drop them off in the city of Jackson. Now, the city of Jackson has no problem recognizing our responsibility, being the capital city, being the largest city by a factor of 3, being a place where most resources are more likely to be received. However, when they drop them off, we want them to drop off some resources too, to help us accommodate the challenges that they suffer. And what they do is drop people off and then talk about all of then we're stigmatized as a city, right? We're stigmatized as a city that isn't responding to the challenges that people have. And this is an area that we have a legislative fight with the state of Mississippi to make sure that we receive adequate funding. We've brought on staff, and intentionally so. We brought on staff a young sister by the name of Chloe Dotson, who has had history working in areas like the Rio Grande Valley. She's originally from Mississippi, but she went and got some training and some work that is dealing with transitional housing for people. And so we want to build a more robust program of transitional housing, whether you suffer from the HIV pandemic or whether you suffer from mental health concerns and the litany of other challenges that we see within our homeless population.
Thank you for that. It is important to recognize missteps. And I applaud your efforts in recognizing that. I'm going to get to some of the questions from our collective audience. So I'm going to literally read. Give me 1 second. So the first question, thank you for submitting this question, is having an HBCU in Jackson, the great Jackson State University. What are your thoughts about getting more Black young people to get involved in the medical/public health field? Your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are, we want to encourage them, make sure that we find, what are the barriers for them not being able to do so. Let me go to, one other issue. The earlier question, before I come to that, the earlier question that you asked me about the release of federal funds, I peeked at some of our questions there. And someone said that they were internal issues. Just to be honest with you, and so I responded to your question based on my knowledge. The mayor is at this 30,000-foot view, right? That often, unless we're brought into the fold, we're often ignorant to those things unless it's brought to our attention. And so I appreciate you bringing that to my attention, and it's something that we can work on. But going back to healthcare, I think that we have to support the institutions that at the most significant rate help to educate and prepare our children. Jackson is fortunate that we have strong institutions around us. We have Tougaloo College, which has its Kinjalo department that brings a lot of young people into the field of medicine through its work in its biology department. And Jackson State, and we have 5 institutions of higher learning around the city of Jackson. And so, we have to be able to connect young people to these opportunities. We have to make sure that they are able to get a vision of themselves being within these programs. Within JPS, we have, initiated certain programs within certain institutions so that they can be familiar and acclimated with the career in the healthcare profession. At Lanier High School, they have specialized programming that is able to introduce our young people at an early age to these opportunities. It wasn't a distant idea or concept for me to be a lawyer because, I had the great benefit that my father was in the profession. And so far too often, our children have not been presented these opportunities, have not been surrounded by these opportunities. And so we have to do everything that we can to present this to them, and also recognize the disproportion in resources within our educational systems. I still remember growing up in Jackson, Mississippi, being a JPS student, where I had a class set of books, right? And we were being rated for our performance across the state. If I had a class set of books, then that meant that I don't know how you accomplish homework when you can't take your book home to do homework, right? And so those type of discrepancies and inequities in funding and support lead to detrimental outcomes in our communities.
Thank you, Mayor, for that. My next question is simple. What fuels you?
Oh man, you switched gears on me really quickly.
You got it. Politicians, have to be on their toes, and I'm sure, what have you.
Well, there's a number of things that fuel me. First and foremost, I credit my parents for raising us with a principle base of believing in family, believing in community, and more important than both of that, believing in and viewing the community as a family. And so when we all know, or many of us know, growing up in the communities in which we have, you remember when your mother used to wake you up and make you go to church, right? Well, in my household, not only was I, awoken early on Sunday morning, but throughout the weekend, we were at we were at the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement Center on the corner of Martin Luther King and Randall, doing community programming, doing political education, holding summer camps for kids, and doing teaching them reading, writing, arithmetic, and extracurricular activities, taking them swimming, teaching them martial arts. And so that was a part of what I was, brought up, understanding that my talents and my abilities are the fruit of our labor as a people, and don't belong to me exclusively. They belong to us as a people and must be used accordingly. So that fuels me. And then on a personal side, and this connects to my parents as well, I lost both of my parents at a very young age, right? I lost my mother, at the age of 20. I lost my father when I was 31. And so, while I certainly would have desired to have my parents a lot longer, I'm blessed because, I got the most out of them for the time that I did have them. And because they were so centered around community work and community advocacy, for me, I feel that they live in our people's struggle. And so the longer I work, they will never die, right? And so that fuels me.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you. And I applaud you for stepping in and keeping that legacy going. My next question is, we come to you humbly, wanting. This is what we need. This is what we need. The office of mayor and other issues where it's never enough. It's never enough. It's always want. But I would be remiss if we didn't come to you and say, hey, what do you want from us? As a collective community at Black AIDS Institute, it is definitely a partnership. It is something literally where we can directly ask together, work together to end the epidemic, because not one person, you don't have all the keys, we don't have all the keys. We do have the We the People plan, a comprehensive plan to address what is going on in these communities, but it is a working relationship, togetherness to make that happen. So please let us know, what would you like from us, Black AIDS Institute, the community at large, as you begin this second term?
Well, there's a couple of things. One repeated theme throughout our conversation is I want knowledge, right? I want the opportunity to have information at my fingertips that we don't always have readily available for ourselves. I mentioned that Brother Rob's introduction was impressive to me, right? Just the statement around, the need for an organization which not only focuses on the challenges, the stigma of HIV, but specifically geared to Black communities is important. And I thought that was well crafted. And so I would like that. I would also say that one thing that I have become very familiar with is the limitations of the office in which I sit, right? It has been said that the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house, right? And so I understand what the limitations are in this office. And so it means that if we want to see progress, not only can we adapt policy, from the mayor's office, but it requires that we have a holistic approach towards the battles that we are engaged in. I think that when we look at the death of our brother, the murder and assassination of our brother George Floyd, when we look historically at the assassination of Martin Luther King, right? It wasn't, the policy that was adopted and the changes that took place, the reform that took place after both of their deaths, wasn't just because politicians behind the desk decided that they wanted to act. I respectfully submit to you, it was because people took to the streets and said that they weren't taking it anymore. And the powers that be said, oh shit, we have to do something, right? And so, while I may not be directly advocating that we burn down buildings, right? I do believe that we need to concretize that power, concretize the energy of young people that demand justice, that shows the agitation and the lack of patience towards the challenges we seek, that we work internally and externally. And I think that there are strategies in which we can accomplish that.
Wow, we learning tonight. Concretize. The word of the evening is concretize. Come on, Mayor, you better teach and preach and what have you. Mm-hmm. I am going to turn it over to one of the follow-ups that you will be hearing from us as we give you this knowledge, as we help you build these coalitions, what have you, is we have a BTAN network within Jackson and also in Greenville, Mississippi. And BTAN stands for Black Treatment Advocacy Network. And their roles are these local leaders that are our soldiers in these respective communities, looking to address stigma, doing our treatment, really being those engaging frontline soldiers as we work nationally to end HIV epidemic. So I'm privileged to work right next along one of our fearless leaders who's been with BTAN for a number of years, is Dr. Manga, and she wants to present a question. Go ahead, Dr. Manga.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for joining us this evening. I am currently serving as the Chief Operating Officer at My Brother's Keeper here in the Jackson surrounding area. We have a relatively large clinic, Open Arms Clinic. It was the first LGBT plus focused clinic in Mississippi. And so my question to you is, the city of Atlanta named a chief medical officer a couple of years back in order to kind of serve in this capacity of addressing health disparities and health issues around the area. Is that something that maybe the city of Jackson has considered doing, especially after we've seen the onset of what's happened with COVID, and the state of Mississippi has consistently diagnosed anywhere from 450 to 470 new HIV infections each year. So is that something that maybe the city of Jackson would consider doing?
I would say that we will consider it. We have not considered it presently. What we have done in order to learn our way through COVID, for instance, I talked about a task force, right? I had a COVID task force so that my policies and the decisions that we have made thus far haven't been a matter of politics, but of science, right? Yes. And I've been directed in that way. I'm open to that. I will share with you that City of Atlanta's budget is significantly larger than my budget, right? Yeah. And anytime you talk about the creation of positions in that regard, it has to be the mutual agreement, not only of our administration from the executive side, but from the legislative side in order to provide funding for that. I think that a lot of our funding, as with many cities, with most cities around our nation, are disproportionately aligned and the outcomes in which we seek may be better achieved if we allocate more resources towards, things like not only physical health, but mental health and the like. And so I think that is, I embrace that idea, and I'm willing to consider that idea going forward.
I would like to personally invite you to join us in some of the work. You and I have been in several spaces together, so I've had the opportunity of sitting down and talking with you, but I would love to invite you over to My Brother's Keeper to talk to us about just everything that we're doing around HIV in the state of Mississippi. We're 20 years in the game now, and so would love to have you come on.
I'm familiar with My Brother's Keeper, but I if y'all sent an invitation, I didn't know that you sent an invitation. So please, please, let me know when you do that. Okay?
My name is hard to remember, Mata like Prada. So when I call, remember that.
All right, I got you. I'll definitely remember it now.
Yes. And I will make sure that we get that out to you, Dr. Monger, who has been doing this work. I mean, they're boots on the ground and what have you. My next question is another one from the audience, and please keep them coming. It is another hot button issue. You're a Southern mayor, the Bible Belt, as they continue to say, and what have you. And sex education is one of those things that should be taught. And although the birds and the bees should be taught at home and what have you, we have to really rethink that and what have you, as younger individuals are considering transitioning and more just exposed to the internet and just different ways of learning about sex. What are your thoughts about teaching comprehensive sex education in schools?
If you allow me to use it, my response to this by way of example of another hot button issue, whether you're talking about sex education or critical race theory, right? We don't profit our children by trying to hide truth from them, right? We don't only owe our children, understanding about sex education, understanding about race. We don't only owe them Black history, we owe them correct history. And so all of these things are important to the growth and development of our children.
Awesome. So we only, we have like roughly 10 more minutes. Please, if you have any questions, feel free. We welcome these engaging conversations, what have you. My next question is 73 feet. I measured it myself. I got a yardstick out and I said, okay, it's that close. Right down the office from you, and I could be wrong, correct me, because I don't mind being corrected, is Governor Reeves' office. There's definitely, as a politician that is governed accordingly in the state, and you have that duality of having those statewide officials. Is there down the road ambitious, larger, or what have you? Give us some thoughts in regard to the future of the mayor currently.
Oh man, well 73 feet seems awfully close. I think it might be. I don't know. I don't know from where you were measuring, but honestly, I just want to be an asset to my community. I can tell you, and I know that sounds like a political answer, but I can tell you, my background is one where it wasn't on a trajectory to be in electoral politics, neither for myself or my father. In fact, most of our early work was more antagonistic towards electoral politics, doing direct action and things of that regard. But I think ultimately what we understand is that we're a part of a protracted struggle, and it requires that we wage different efforts in the process of trying to build self-determined communities. And so, what you learn as an organizer is that, if you can only organize people who think like you, you're not much of an organizer, right? And so it's about meeting people where they are. And that's why we see politics as a means to an end and not the end. And so I would answer that question in that regard. I would only seek another office, continue in this office, so long as it continues to provide a means to an end. And that means is that end ultimately is to provide self-determined communities.
Awesome. And I'll recheck the ruler.
Now, yeah, you talking about the governor's mansion or
well,
I'm
So I
trying to see.
thought,
That's it.
so what floor are you on? Aren't you in that big, the big building, right?
No,
So
I'm in the little building.
oh,
We
you're
in
in the
the little
little
building.
building. Okay, okay. You're in the little building with big thoughts. Okay,
I
that's my
got you.
bad.
Yeah, I'm in the
What
little
happened?
building. I'm in the 3-story building.
Okay, got you. I know you close though. I know you
Yeah.
close. Do you have a good working relationship with the governor or no?
No, I would, just in transparency, what I would say is that there's a lack of a relationship with the present governor. Obviously, we're not, ideologically aligned. That's no secret. But just as I was able to work in order to stay off the takeover of our school district under the prior governor. I respect a person's principles I disagree with more so than a person who has no principles at all, right? And so, what I do respect in all transparency with the former governor, right? While I disagree with a whole lot, right? His love for Trump and all this other stuff, right? I had a relationship where while we work through things, I could say, look, I'm gonna let you know that when Trump comes to town, I'm not gonna be there, right? I'm gonna stand him up. I'm gonna let you know that I'm gonna hit you off that statement that you just made that I found to be disrespectful. And he would share his sentiments the same. As we've dealt with a pandemic, as we've dealt with a 30-year flood, I think that my efforts to reach out to our current governor have fallen on haven't been responded to frequently enough. That's what I would say. We're open. I wouldn't even say that our communication is highly contentious when we speak. It's just really, really infrequent.
Yes, sometimes that bipartisan support is very hard in certain circles and what have you. And I applaud your efforts on staying firm in your truth, standing firm on what you would believe is, because I think that is so essential during this previous administration. Just so many mistruths and just so much. And although Black Ace Institute does not support any administrations because of where we currently stand, we definitely have seen what has happened when certain administrations do not look at the wholeness of the person or does not work to end HIV holistically in different communities and what needs to be done. That's all the questions that I have. I don't foresee any more. I definitely thank you again. Would you like to give some closing thoughts as we close out this important community town hall?
Just simply expressing my gratitude to be a part of this call, expressing, my willingness to be, a partner. I think, in this discussion, you kind of reminded me of a story that my father shared with me. My father practiced law for more than 30 years. In my opinion, and it's a biased opinion, that he was one of the best legal minds that we've seen in our era. And he was telling me about this situation where he had a client that all throughout the trial, the client was questioning everything he's doing. Why don't you ask him this? And why don't you object to that? And then finally, out of frustration, my father, says, look, man, I know what I'm doing, right? And the client, patiently responded to him, and he said, listen, he said, I know you're good. That's why I got you, right? He said, I just want to make sure that you're being good right now, right? And so what I will say to you is that, I'm fully invested in the fight against everything that ails us as a people. And, whether or not I am doing what I need to be doing at this point in order to elevate the issues of HIV and its disproportionate effect within our communities or not, I am receptive to unity, debate, unity, where we can come into the room, identify where we have unity, debate where we may have differences, with the objective of reaching with greater unity than we arrived with. And so I appreciate y'all and hope that none of you are strangers going forward.
Awesome. So as I close out, I would like to spend a special shout out to Dr. Manga from My Brother's Keeper, my Verna Bender from the Mississippi Department of Health for all the important work the state has done, Dr. Keisha O'Reilly for submitting questions to the mayor, and then our dynamic lead, Ms. Rimsky Evans. Again, we welcome you to join us at BTAN, Mississippi, as we work to end the HIV epidemic, not only in Jackson, but in Greenville and across the United States. In order to end HIV, we must end HIV in Black and Brown communities. Our next community meeting will be July 20th, and typically we have our meetings the third Tuesday of every month at 4 p.m. All right. I will be sending a special invite to the mayor, so hopefully him or someone from his office can be a part of the ongoing conversation as we end HIV, not only in Jackson, but across the great state of Mississippi. Thank you. Please continue to be safe, and thank you.
Free the land. Y'all have a good one.
Bye-bye.